Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Once again, this is Sam Hill with the Rocket Company talking about rocket donations today. If you will look on your GoToMeeting dashboard, there should be a box called chat. And if you look at that, go ahead and keep that open so that you can participate today. We are going to do some giveaways today. We're going to give away some free prizes from the Rocket Company. And a couple of them are pretty big, as in free service on a item that we're going to be discussing. So you will want to be participating. Go ahead and let us know, if you're able to, in that chat box where you're joining us from. How about where you're from, and do you have snow on the ground like a lot of the country does? There's a chat box there. No snow here, Tucson. Not surprised by that. Today's high is 12 degrees, negative 27 degrees, 4 inches of snow. Brian in Alaska, how about that? Very little snow from Brian in Alaska. San Diego, nice and clear, 63, Karen says. It's chilly in Florida today. Eric, love it. Oceanside, California, no snow. Huntington, first snow of the season. Denver is 54 degrees. Come on. It's 20 degrees where I am. Wind chill, negative 10. Wow. Well, here's the good part about a webinar is that hopefully everybody's in a warm place where you are not out in the snow. Hey, it's right about start time. I want to respect your all's time today, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And today we're going to be talking about rocket donations. We're going to be talking about digital giving and really what it means to help your church get more money for more ministry. That is going to be our specific discussion. And I want to tell you, this is going to be some heavy stuff, all right? We're going to cover some meaty stuff about digital giving. This is not going to be light and fluffy. We're going to be talking about the real deal questions that people have about digital giving. So I'm going to show my screen now. If you are not familiar with the Rocket Company, just a brief way of introduction here, we have been a church space leader for over a decade. And we started our company with the goal of helping churches get more money for more ministry. We started our company to help churches see breakthroughs in areas like you see here on your screen, church finances being our biggest area of breakthrough. Over 10,000 churches worldwide that we assist in one of our modules. What we're going to be talking about today, rocket donations. And my name's Sam Hill. I'm in charge of the rocket donations team. That is what I do. And one of the things that I want you to do, if you're able to right now, is make sure if you can just dedicate this time to this webinar, 30 minutes, 45 minutes or so, depending on how many questions I get. Put away your phone. Don't minimize me. We're going to be having some giveaways, a couple pretty big ones. And I want you to take some notes, all right? Take some notes. Get out something to write with, or if you're doing it on your desktop or your phone, open up some notes or a Word document. And I want you to start off by just writing down your attendance, okay, the attendance at your church. I want you to write down the annual budget of your church. That's annual. I want you to write down the percent of your budget that is coming in right now via digital, okay, not including ACH. So attendance, then write down your budget, then write down your current digital participation, how much of your annual budget comes in digitally. You can just estimate if you need to. And then the last one is, what percentage of your digital giving is recurring? How much of it is predictable? How much of it is happening automatically? All right, so just write those things down. You don't necessarily have to share them in the chat box unless you really want to, but just keep those in your notes because we're going to be talking about some specific numbers that I want to cover with you. All right, so don't minimize me. We've got prizes, we've got giveaways, we've got a big discount, and we're going to be talking about digital donations. The topic of today's webinar is called How Many Digital Donations Are You Missing and Why? A software company who just sits around and dreams about technology. We know technology has a role. We know it's important when it comes to digital giving. But there's a lot bigger picture when it comes to digital giving, something that goes beyond features, something that goes beyond just kind of the general whys. Why do you have digital giving? We interact with 10,000 churches, about 150, 200 per month, only about digital. So what I'm going to share with you today is informed what they've brought to us. It's informed by financial trends and transaction trends in the church space and outside the church space. I want to talk about some real numbers today, all right, the real numbers. Let's look at what we're going to talk about specifically. What I want to accomplish is a couple things. Number one, I want you to have 3 specific financial goals for your digital donation strategy. Maybe you don't even have a strategy, but if you don't, or if you do, no matter where you are, I want to dive. Most church leaders that we talk to really don't have specific financial goals. They know kind of exactly why and exactly what it's supposed to be doing for them. So they don't know if they're making progress. So we're going to talk about what are the key metrics, what are the benchmarks so that you know if you're making progress, okay? Number 2, we're going to talk about how to calculate donations you could be missing and some potential returns on investment as well, all right? So I put get out your calculator, nothing too complex, but we're gonna look at real numbers because that's what matters. You know, digital is about helping you get more money for more ministry. And number 3, we're gonna talk about some of the elephants in the room that come with digital, like transaction fees. You know, hey, why is the board so bent out of shape about the cost of digital giving? You know, is it really worth it to do digital giving? Are transaction fees going to eat up all your donations? We're going to talk about those things. We're going to hit them head on. And then I'm going to give away some prizes from the Rocket Company. All right. Digital is a vehicle to help you get more money for more ministry. I want you to put that in front of you as the ultimate sort of goal when it comes to your digital donation strategy. Digital is not about, you know, how cool can we be at a church. It's not about just trying to quote unquote reach the young people because they just need to give online, right? And we don't want to miss them. We're going to take kind of 3 steps back today. We're going to get in the airplane and go for the 30,000 foot view and look at the big picture. And the goal of digital, what really matters is it helping you get more money in the bank to pursue the ministry dreams that God has put into your heart, the hearts of your people and your leaders. That's what digital is all about. So I want to talk about how important debit and credit cards are. And when I talk about, you know, real numbers, these are real numbers that I want us to look at here today, because a lot of church leaders don't really know how important offering a digital solution to give is, okay? And so here's some real numbers. What form of payment are you using most often in the following locations? So everyday life, and this is a consumer payment study that took all of 2014 to gather. It was delivered in 2015. So it is very current, very relevant. And you can look and see debit and credit cards represent, you know, at the supermarket, 80%, gas station, 80%, online shopping, 80%, online travel sites, hey, you're almost right at 60, right? Discount store, you got a little bit of cash. Coffee shops, of course, you got some cash in coffee shops. Fast food, right? Low ticket items. Dine-in restaurants, right? Now we're back up to some higher ticket items, 80%. Department store, 80%. So cards are so crucially important that you have to keep these trends in mind when you think about your digital donation strategy. You have to have at least a frame of reference, and you should know how often people are using cards in everyday life. And most church leaders know that, but they don't realize exactly how often it is. The preferred payment type, look at this one. All right, debit and credit cards, look at that, represent what? 78% of the preferred payment type of the average American. Look at cash. What's cash right now? You know, less than 1% right here in the corner. You can see that. You've got checks represent a little. The point is this. It is the preferred habit and rhythm of exactly what you're seeing right here. 70 to 80% of transactions, the preferred method is with a card, debit and credit card. So it's crucial. Now you say, well, what does that mean? Okay, because most churches, they're aware that cards are important, but they don't really know exactly what it means for them. So let's talk about the first goal of your digital strategy, and that is this: to recover donations that are currently MIA for your church. They're missing in action, okay? And here's a model I want you to work through here. If your church right now is at 20% digital participation, and cards, as we just saw, are the preferred method for 7 out of 10 transactions, so 70%, then you have a gap of 50. What we mean by that, generally, broadly speaking, is that there is a gap between the people that should be using debit and credit cards in your church but are not. You could be really conservative here and say that if cards are the preferred method for even 5 out of 10 people at your church, then you have a gap of 30% if your current 20%, right? 3 out of every 10 people at your church should be donating digitally, but they're not, right? If that's your gap number. Why? In that gap, there are people who give little to none. We just finished some conversations consulting with the church. Over 1,000 people attend this church. They tracked in 2015 through F1, which, as you know, is a very reliable CRM. 40%, 40, of their church gave no donations, not a single one in 2015. The bottom line is that there are people in your church who are what we say on the sidelines, not giving either at all or little to none because they don't have a preferred method where they can go and make that digital donations. So let's put some other meat on this here. If you have a church of 300 people, okay, and 10% give little to none, and each of those missed units represents $2,500 annually, which I just put, it's a 10% tithe on $25,000, okay, just for a frame of reference. Then you've got 300 people, 10% are not participating. That's 30 givers. 30 givers, the tithes you're missing, $2,500 is $75,000 of donation dollars that are currently completely missing in action. All right. The first goal of digital is to recover these donations from the gap. And I want you to calculate the gap for your church if you're taking notes. And what you're going to do is take your current digital participation, right, which is based on your annual budget. All right. That's going to be a percentage. Subtract that percentage from 50%. Okay. And we're going to use 50% as the conservative preferred method of payment. So what we're saying is if 5 out of 10 people at your church, 50%, if they prefer to use debit and credit cards, and you're currently at 30%, you have a gap of 20%. The gap is the difference between what should be the preferred 50% and where you are now. And within that gap, there are missing and infrequent donations, right? There are donations that are MIA, and you want to recover those donations through your digital strategy. So when your board's asking, when everybody's asking, what is digital going to do for us? The first thing that it's going to do for you is it's going to help you recover donation dollars that right now are missing. You don't get them year after year, and you need them obviously very, very badly. So that's the first thing that digital is going to help you do. It's going to help you recover lost, missing, and infrequent donations. All right, so that's crucial. Now, let's talk about a second goal of digital. I want to keep rolling. And if you have a question, put it in the chat box, and I'm going to answer it, okay? If you have a question, just start stacking them up. We're going to answer some questions here. All right, now we're going to do some giveaways here, so pay attention. The second goal of digital is to gain greater consistency across the entire donor base. This is huge. Pay attention. Let's talk about Joe Donor for a minute, okay? Joe Donor, he gives $5,000 annually to your church. Joe Donor gives $5,000 annually. He gives 12 checks, right? He writes 1 check a month for $400, all right? And I rounded down there just so you know. It's actually $416, but let's just call it $400. Now, here's a question. It's not a trick question. And the first one to answer it is gonna win this prize. If Joe goes on vacation to Disney World and misses a check, how much money did your church lose? 416. Connie. There we go. Connie got it. All right, I'm writing your name down. That's right. If Joe misses a check, you miss $416. All right? How about number 2? It looks like David's already there. David Smart, the smart man. All right? If Joe is sick and forgets his checkbook another Sunday throughout the year, how much have you lost year to date? And David Smart got it. $832. Right? So Connie and David, and I know Erin, our Rocket Donations, one of our concierge, she's on, so I want you to remember that. Remember Connie and David, please. We're going to get you all 75 free sermon stories, an incredible resource that we have. And if you don't have that, or if you already have it, rather, we'll get you something else. The point is this, okay, everybody, pay attention. Every time Joe forgets a check, you're out the full amount. You're out the full amount. And the average donor is missing right now 2 to 3 donations a year. I'll tell you another church that we did a consulting interaction with. And this particular church, they did a study. 25% of their people could sustain back-to-back-to-back giving months. In other words, 75% of their people could not give in back-to-back-to-back months. They missed at least 1 month on a 90-day stretch. And most church leaders will admit that's probably pretty accurate. The average donor is probably missing. There's a few exceptions. You've got the really faithful, really organized, auto bill pay people. But the average donor is missing at least 1 tithe per year, but really it's more like 2 or 3 per year. When they miss that tithe, you're out the full amount. You're out the full amount. So now that's real dollars that you lose. Now let's talk about this, and this is where I'm going to give away 90 days of free Rocket Donation service. So let's go quick. Why transaction fees should be your best friend for Joe Donor. Guess what the transaction fees approximate are on Joe Donors? $5,000 annually. What are those transaction fees? Who's the first person to say it? Woo, we got some quick responses. It was C. All right, the answer is C, $154. And Aaron, I'm going to need you to keep track of that too. Whoever was the first one to say C is going to get 90 days free service if they sign up. It looks like Joel Parsons. Congratulations. We're going to give you 90 days Rocket Donations free service, which is huge. So look, the point is this, all right, back to the numbers. There's going to be more giveaways. I'm going to give away more free service later. The point is this, every time you miss a check from Joe Donor, just like Connie said, you're out $400, all right, annually, not monthly, annually, the total year. The cost on his $5,000 if Joe Donor is on a recurring donation is $154. So this is what church leaders and what board members stumble over, and they don't need to, and it holds them back. When Joe Donor misses a check, you lose $400. If he misses twice a year, you lost $800. The transaction fees on his annual contribution, if he's on a recurring donation, $154. The average transaction fees on individual contribution, one at a time, $12.30. But if he misses 1 check, you lose $400. All right, so it's crucial. When he gives online, you lose $12. So that's crucial to keep in mind these numbers. If Joe gave on a bi-weekly basis, I'm getting some feedback from somebody. If you can just mute yourself, that would be great. There we go. If Joe gives bi-weekly checks of $200, when he misses a check, you lose $200, right? The transaction fees on $200, $6. You'd rather lose $6. The point is this, checks and cash represent only about 20-30% of transactions in society. You just saw the graphs. You just saw the pie chart, right? Checks and cash are the small minority amount. But what digital can help you do is get more consistency across your donor base. And then we hear sometimes, well, transaction fees, they add up, okay? They add up, and over time we lose money. No, you don't. If you have 100 donors, this is the shocking model right here, all right? And this is no Jedi trick. This is no wave of fingers. These are just, there's no droids here. Listen, 100 donors, $2,500 per year they give, okay? 10% tithe on $25,000. They give that in 12 monthly checks of $200. I'll round it down, okay? It's actually $208, but let's just say they write 12 checks, $200. Each of the 100 donors, if they miss 1 check each year, right, you lose $20,000. And some of you might have 300 donors, 500 donors, thousands of donors. So you can multiply the exponential effect if you have lots of donors who miss 1 donation. If they miss 2, you lose $40,000. Guess what the transaction fees are on 20 grand? $960. 1,200 transactions times 30 cents each, 360, 3%, 20 grand, $600. And you can see the transaction fees on 40,000 there. So it's not even comparable. It's not even comparable. The consistency that digital will afford your financial strategy far outweighs the fees. And don't take these fees as like, oh, this is what the Rock Company charges and sign off. Okay, I actually use PayPal's fees, just so you know. I use PayPal's fees, so we would have just kind of a baseline that we all knew. And then you get some churches that'll say, well, we'll save 1% and we'll go with a almost free service. And I just want to say, hey, be really, really careful, because this is about stepping back and looking at the really big picture for digital. 1% on $500,000 is $5,000. And you can see the differences there. My point is this: churches, when we consult with them, they've got big money decisions. They've got big money decisions, like we need a new roof. That's a big money decision. We need to hire somebody. That's a big money decision. We need a new building. That's a big money. We need to renovate our existing building. That's a big money. But yet, church leaders will then go with a provider that doesn't really offer a solution that's good for their donor. They go with a provider that doesn't offer any ongoing kind of support or communication to try to save pennies on the dollar. So that's what I'm saying when it comes to transaction fees, when it comes to all that, you have to just keep in mind that the second goal of digital is to gain greater consistency across the entire donor base. Think big with digital. Think big, not small. Small thinking is, it's not worth the transaction fees. Small thinking is, well, we could save a percentage point if we went with a really cheap provider. That's small thinking. Big thinking is our digital donation strategy aligned to capture the gap? And you know what the gap is. And is our strategy going to do it? Is it going to accomplish capturing the gap? Big thinking is, hey, if we gain more consistency, we'll have tens of thousands of dollars that we're missing right now. Big thinking is, if 70% of all transactions are cards, am I taking digitally as seriously as I need to? Big thinking is, hey, we have to make changes in light of facts. Facts are 60, 70% plus of all transactions of your people in everyday life are cards, right? So do you have a strategy in place that gives that much weight to it? And are you communicating to your donors in such a way that they'll use digital? If you don't make any changes in 2016, it won't be any different than 2015, right? So that's big thinking. And digital is a big deal, and it offers you the potential for big results. Let's talk about the third goal of digital. Number one, just so you're clear, I'm reviewing. Number one, digital helps you capture the gap, right? The missing donations, the donations MIA that are infrequent, non-existent. Number two, digital helps you get greater consistency across your entire donor base. Number three, it offers you predictable donations, right? Recurring donations. And that is impact on the operating budget, right? Recurring donations, if you're not familiar with them, are just simply donations that people set to happen automatically, whether it's each week, bi-weekly, each month, or annually, so that the church knows, hey, Sam has committed to this donation for the next 12 months and beyond, so we can plan on that in our budget. Now, the typical church has some digital participation, but very, very low recurring. The average church is right around 30% participation, less than 10%, less than 5% recurring. If you strip away ACH, most churches are done. They don't have any recurring donations. It's all what we call on demand, on demand. And you know, you got to be careful. If you have a bunch of digital donations and you don't have a growing recurring percentage, there's some churches that run the danger of just duplicating the same problems they have with checks and cash, and that is infrequency, right? And you're going to say, wait, you just said you can gain consistency. You can if you have a communication strategy in place and they can give on a recurring basis. That's what's going to give you the consistency, is getting Joe Donor on a recurring donation. But if you are on demand, in other words, you're a church that just has all these different features and people use it only when you bring it up, they only go to the kiosk when you bring it up, they only go to the app when you tell them to, then a lot of times churches will find they've got the same problems they have with check and cash, and that is it's not predictable. So if it's not predictable, it really doesn't help your budget like it needs to. Recurring donations, that's what makes the impact on the operating budget. So that is the importance of recurring donations, what it can do for you. Now, I want to talk about why churches don't have recurring donations. I mentioned it briefly. You know, there's something we call the Snapchat technology strategy, okay, that a lot of churches have. We consult with 150 churches a month. About half of them have the Snapchat technology strategy when it comes to digital. What do I mean by that? It means they have, 4 to 5 different features. When I ask them, hey, why do you have this feature? The answer is usually, well, a software company told us that we needed it to reach young people. That's the most typical answer that we get, which is fine. Hey, we want to reach the young people. There's no doubt about that. But if you build your strategy around all these little tiny features, what we call small doors, and you push your people to 4 different small doors, you're going to divide them up in terms of being focused and actually using digital in the way that you want them to. And then communication, that's the main reason why churches don't have recurring donations. They never ask for them. Instead, they stand up and they say, hey, we got a really great app. It's awesome. Well, that's fine, but that's not telling somebody to make a recurring donation, because it'll really impact the operating budget and allow you all to reach the community like everybody wants to do, right? So there's a really big difference between talking about features and actually communicating about donating with your donors. So those are the main reasons why churches don't have recurring donations. They're heavy, feature-focused, and their communication is not clear about recurring donations. Let's talk about the impact of recurring donations, okay? If a church has a $500,000 annual budget, 30% of that is digital. If a third of their digital donations, 33% is recurring, that represents about $50,000 annually, $4,100 a month, right? Give or take, I'm rounding down here, rounding up. Then you've got about $4,100 each month that is recurring and predictable. Now, I want you to put in the chat box how many of you need and want more recurring donations. Put a 1 or a yes if you need recurring donations. All right, most churches say we need it and we need it bad, because you can't just ask for money on Christmas Eve and in the middle of summer, when you're dying on the vine. You need to ask for money, you need to ask for money more consistently and with a purpose, with a reason, okay? And that's something the Rocket Company helps with on our Rocket Donation platform, which you can see at the bottom of my screen here, the opportunity to book a private demo of Rocket Donations, which is our digital giving solution. But recurring donations are the X factor. I mean, it's the true X factor, because once the honeymoon is over with digital and you're 90 days, you've launched 180 days, your first year is over, your second year, and you get up, the average church will get up to 20, 30% pretty quick, but little to no recurring, and it's kind of like, okay, well, now what? All right? And so that's why recurring is so crucial. If you're a new church just starting your digital solution, just going down the road, you need to implement toward a recurring donation mindset from day one. If you're a church that's down the road on your digital strategy and you need recurring donations, you need to make a change quick, and you need to make a change fast to turn that ship, and it's very possible. Think about your digital donation strategy like you're in the middle of summer, everyone's on vacation, and you still have expenses, okay? When I talk about with church leaders how important your digital donation strategy is, I mean, you got to think about it from a holistic perspective, right? You can't just think about using on Christmas Eve, it was great, right? When people are on vacation in the middle of summer, that's when checks are MIA, that's when cash is being spent on vacation. That's when recurring donations matter. If you took away Christmas Eve donations from a lot of churches, they'd be toast. And that frustrates them, right? They want the donations in the middle of June, the middle of July. And so that's why recurring donations matter, because that predictable, scheduled recurring donations, those are going to happen week after week, month after month for the church, and allow you all to truly hire people, put roofs on, renovate. Those are big money decisions. Remember, small thinking versus big thinking? Big money decisions require planning and action and a strategy to actually get predictable donations. I want you all on your notes. I want you each to work toward a recurring donation dream number, okay? And hopefully it doesn't sound too hokey, but what I simply mean is, what recurring donation amount would change your church finances? Like, what would make a huge, huge impact? And one way to figure out what it is this. You got your annual budget, okay, which is whatever it is. It's X. So I'm going to say, let's just say it's $500,000. Divide that by 12. That's your monthly budget. So $41,000. I'm using my example here, okay? How much of that monthly budget would you like to be predictable? How much in terms of dollar amount, okay? So if my monthly budget's $41,000, Man, it sure would be great to have $15,000 each month that we knew was coming in. And what you do is you take your dream number and you divide it by your monthly budget, and that tells you what percent of digital donations you need on a recurring schedule, okay, on a recurring schedule. And if you feel comfortable, go ahead and put in the chat box, you know, at least a percentage. What's your dream number percentage? What's going to really make an impact for the church? Put it in there if you can. You know, what percentage in digital donations would make a huge impact for your church? So you don't have to give a dollar amount. We just want to say what percent. 25% from Lori, 60% from Jamie. You know, it's huge. And a lot of churches, like I said, they're just kind of stuck. You know they need it. They've got digital participation, but nobody's on a recurring donation or very little. Here we go. We got others. Joe says 40, Eric 30, Joanne 35%. So here's what you got to keep in mind, everybody. Gene says 25, Lance says 50. Hey, here's what you got to keep in mind. If your dream number's 30, that's 30% recurring, which means you have to have even more participation. In other words, not everybody's going to make a recurring commitment. So if you want 30% recurring donations, hey, you got to get real. You're going to have 50 to 60% participation and then convert a portion of those over toward recurring. Does that make sense? So again, you got to think big. If you want recurring donations, you're going to have to get a higher participation. And my point in saying all that is not to go, oh, man, this seems impossible. No, my point is that's why you've got to have a strategy. That's why church leaders got to stop going out and just picking a random software vendor, picking a random vendor because, you know, they've got a 1% lower transaction fee. So they're going to save, you know, a couple $1,000s each year, but they need tens of thousands of dollars for financial needs. And they want tens of thousands of dollars in recurring donations. You can't make big money decisions with a small money mindset for your church. So that's how important recurring donations are. Let's just review, and then I'm going to do a bunch of Q&A, okay? And the review is this. Hey, you're going to recover missing donations if you've got a strong digital strategy. You're going to recover missing donations. You're going to get greater consistency across the board from check writers, from cash writers, greater consistency across the board. You're going to get recurring donations if your strategy works, okay? And that's going to really totally impact and change your operating budget because it's going to be planned donations. It's going to be planned donations. So that's what digital should be doing for you, okay? Now, obvious question. Well, how do I do it, okay? How do I do it? The answer, there are two pieces, and most churches only have one usually. The two pieces are you need technology and you need a communication strategy, okay? On the technology, it's got to be easy to use. That's when I say if you just go out and find the cheapest thing you can find, it's going to be hard to use. And when we consult with churches and we go on their site and we do an audit, and I go on there as a guest or one of our other team members goes on as a guest, and I'm 6, 7, 8 clicks before I'm even starting my donation, not going to happen. People are not going to use it. So the technology, the things that matter the most is not a particular feature. Okay, let's get the features out of our head for a minute, okay? What matters the most on the technology is ease of usage. It's got to be intuitive. Ages 10 to the upper end of 70 need to be able to navigate. Like you've got 5 features because you're trying to reach the young people. Well, you know, you got to expand the horizon a bit because you got to reach all demographics, right? And I always joke because young people, 20s and 30s somethings, those are the ones that actually don't make enough money, so make a lot of money. So a lot of church members will drive their entire digital strategy based on a small demographic through a small feature in the group of people who actually has the smallest amount of money, but it's driving their entire digital strategy that should be, you know, getting in between 40 to 70%, 50 to 70% of their annual budget. So that's how important this whole picture is thinking through those things. So you've got to have simplistic technology that works. I call it big door versus little door, right? Features are little doors, and you send your people 4 different ways, right? And usually what we find with churches, and again, we interact with 150, 200 a month, 10,000 wide is our reach. What we find with churches is the more features they have sometimes, the more scattered their people are. There's chaos, and there's no really rhyme or reason to their digital strategy. It's like throw out as many features as we can because if we throw them out, they'll be used. Not necessarily, and they're definitely not going to be used on a recurring basis either, because there's so many different features. So your technology's got to be simple, simple, simple. Let's talk about communication strategy, because if you've got technology but you don't have a communication strategy, it doesn't matter. Okay, the communication is crucial. Technology will not communicate for you. Okay, you've got to communicate to your donors. Technology is simply the vehicle. It's simply the tool. It's a payment processing. That's all we're talking about. PayPal's been around since I was in middle school. Okay, so it's nothing new. All right, so it's just a vehicle, but you've got to have a communication strategy to talk to your people about donating, and your communication strategy has to have 3 parts. Okay, it's got to be consistent. What I mean by consistent, it means you've got to talk to your donors not twice a year in the middle of the summer and Christmas Eve. You've got to talk to donors on a regular basis. And the way we do it at the Rocket Company, and if you schedule a private demo below, we'll walk you through our entire roadmap of how we do it. We do it by season, and we talk to donors seasonally, fall, winter, holiday, spring, and summer. You have a communication strategy that you follow for that season, okay? And if you schedule a demo, you'll actually see the roadmap, and you'll see the actual resources we give you to do this. But you got to have a communication strategy that's consistent. It's the consistency that will get you your uptick in usage and recurring donations. Number 2, your communication strategy has to have different channels. It can't all be, I put it on the bulletin. It can't all be, well, we put it on our website with the give button. It can't all be, well, when we first launched it, we did a sermon series about giving, and we launched our, our mobile app. You have to have an ongoing, consistent strategy, but you've got to communicate to your people through different channels. Not everybody reads a bulletin. Not everybody responds to the sermon. Some people respond to a video, audio visual. Some people respond to a giving talk. Some people respond to a letter, right? A snail mail, right? Some people respond to an email. Some people respond to a sermon series. Some people respond to year-end letters and finance guides and all these kinds of things. You have to use all of those channels, right, to get in front of your donors and talk to them about giving. So got to be consistent throughout the year. You can't have these long breaks. The longer you wait, the more awkward it is, right? We talk with church leaders. You've got to communicate through different channels, and you've got to have the right emphasis, meaning, hey, we need you to give on a recurring basis, and here's why. Here's why we're talking about giving this fall, because we've got missions. We're launching a missionary family this fall. We are starting our capital campaign this fall. We are starting an after-school program this fall. And as you know, we'd like to bring on a staff person. That's why we're asking for your donations this fall, and that's why we're asking you to do it on a recurring basis. Communication is everything. It's everything when it comes to your donation strategy. What we find with churches, the average church, I'd say 9 out of 10, they've got technology, they have no communication strategy. Why don't they have a communication strategy? The main reason is because, number 1, they don't know how to do it. And number 2, more than that, they just don't have the time to do it because you're too busy preaching, you're too busy meeting with people, and it makes total sense. So you don't have time to sit around and write up giving talks and write up giving emails and create giving slides, and you're not going to create custom giving videos and all that kind of stuff. So it just doesn't happen. And so that's why you get some participation on your digital tool, but there's little to no recurring. That's why, if you're a new church and you're going to get started down the digital path, you've got to start out with a roadmap and follow a strategy. So that's how you get digital donations, and that's how you get them on a recurring basis. Should I do another giveaway? How about that? Yes or no? I guess that's going to be an easy answer. All right. Yes. Okay. All right. Here we go. How about I'm going to give I'll give 90 days of free service again to somebody. Aaron, you're going to have to watch this. All right. Here we go. How many donations does it take each month to cover the entire cost of a solution? All right. So what I'm saying is, how many donations after you take out the cost for your software, your online giving software, after you take out the bank charges, after you take out transaction fees, how many donations do you need to pay for the entire platform each month? We got a lot of C's. We got a lot of C's right there. I'm looking. I got a B here. I got a B here from Gene Morgan. And if I miss somebody else above that, I'm thinking Gene got it. It is B, $140. Let that sink in a minute, right? Because the board says the transaction fees are too expensive. No, they're not. You just saw the models. If you're worried about transaction fees, you got money that you're losing in checks and cash so fast we couldn't even count it. Then the board says, well, it's too expensive. That's why PayPal is free. I like it. I like free, right? But nobody's using PayPal because it's old school and it's frustrating, and you're frustrated. You don't have recurring donations, so you need a partner. And the church board says, well, it's too expensive. I'm not paying anything per month. It's one donation, one of 140. If you launch your donation site today and tomorrow I gave $140, guess what? It's free for 30 days. It's paid for. It's paid for, everything. So I'm trying to hit head on these questions that we get from every church leader and we get from every board member, which is all about the numbers, the numbers, the numbers. And these are not our costs, by the way. I'm just using an illustration. It only takes one donation of $140 to pay for our solution. And it's actually, you'll find out, far less than probably what you imagine it is. So, and that's 90 days free service for Gene, I think it was. Congratulations. So that's what digital is all about. I hope that is helpful to you. You can book an appointment to learn about the Rocket Company's digital giving solution. Obviously, we have a solution that is focused on the right technology and includes a full communication suite season by season, year after year. It takes 15, 20 minutes to do a demo. And if you mention this webinar on your demo, there's actually a tremendous savings package put together to help you start off 2016. Because it's like I said earlier, if you don't make any changes, it's not going to be any different than 2015. All right, so the 3 goals of digital, and I'm going to answer all these questions, or as many as I can. Here, I'm going back to the questions. If you got one, put them in, okay? 3 goals of digital. Number 1, it's going to help you recover donations that are MIA, donations that you are missing or they are infrequent. Number 2, consistency. Joe Donor, he misses a check, you're out $400. Throughout the year, the transaction fees are going to be 1/4 of what you're missing on his checks, all right? So it's pennies on the dollar. Number 3, digital giving is going to help you get recurring donations, which will drastically change your operating budget. If you're a church that's at 20 to 40% digital participation and less than 10% recurring donations, I want to talk to you. Sign up for an appointment. If you're a church that's just getting started on your digital path and you're new to it and you want to make sure you take the first right step, we want to talk to you. So book your appointment for sure. And again, don't forget to mention the Fast Start incentive as well. Let me go up. I'm going to do some Q&A. You can see the calendar link is on there, but let's do some Q&A and talk through a few things. I think I saw some questions here up. Let me look. I'm going to some questions. Bear with me. If you've got a question, go ahead and put it in. Somebody said, what is digital donations? Festus asked that question. Digital donations are when people go online and they give, just like when you check out on Amazon or you buy something on eBay and you use PayPal or you use Amazon and you check out and you use your debit or credit card. That is just what digital donations are. Another question from Dave. What type of online giving do you suggest? Website-based, app-based, kiosk, or other? Great question. All right. We recommend first and foremost web-based because, as I said earlier, it is the biggest door. You don't want to do a bunch of small doors. You want to have a bunch of really one big door that people walk through. Kiosk is small door. Kiosks are old school, by the way. Your mobile phone that you all have right next to you, your iPhones, your Androids, your iPads, your Kindles, those are the new kiosks. 500 people can give at once while one person gives at a kiosk. Kiosks existed when mobile devices didn't. That's how they got started, and they're phasing out. Don't worry about kiosks. Apps, it's like I said, features. They're cool, they're great, whatever. It doesn't matter. What matters the most is, are you following a communication strategy? We believe that website-based will get the most usage because we find that really 2 things I'll say about like apps and texting, and we have text to give. So we've got features too. So I'm not anti-feature. We've got some features. What I'm saying is churches will go with software vendors based on features that are used by small demographics with not a lot of money, and they let it drive their entire strategy. And that is the reason why they don't have recurring donation basis for their church, is because they have been too feature focus. So that's my recommendation there. Website-based, when I say that 60, 70% are using cards, okay, I'm saying that a website-based that's mobile-enabled, that's going to capture the masses, all right? That's going to capture the masses. Apps and little tiny features, they're going to capture small percentages of people. Look at another one. Since the under 50 crowd are not joiners, how do you, Michael, I'm not sure on that question. Do you mean, can you clarify, Michael? I'm not sure on that question. Under 50 crowd are not joiners. Do you mean they're not joining the church? So how do you get them to participate? Is that your question? I'm going to go down here. Somebody says, Connie, great question. She says, right now we have 27% recurring. Great job, Connie. That's awesome. What should we be shooting for? Well, it varies by the church, but typically what we'd like to see for a church is anywhere from the 40 to 70%, or let's just say 40 to 60% total participation, because it's not going to be everybody. So if it's the preferred method for 7 out of 10 people, 70% in society, you know, you're not going to be perfect. So let's bring it down a little bit. And we would say about a third to hopefully pushing a half you would love to have on recurring donations, but it does vary. Are there options that allow the use of a debit card but not a credit card? Eric Stevenson asked this question. I am not aware of any. I would just probably go like the ACH route or something like that, because debit and credit cards are pretty much the same thing in terms of how they function and when they process a payment. How do you sell the idea to church boards who are anti-change? Dave Potts, are you still on this webinar? Dave Potts? It's a great question, because this is really the question that a lot of people have. I don't know if Potts is still on here. Talk to me if you are. All right, how do you sell this to basically people who are resistant to change? He said, anti-change. Dave Potts says that, the church board. That's a great question, all right, because everybody's got to talk to the church board. I talked to 3 pastors earlier today, and every single one, 3 for 3, said, I'm trying to get buy-in from somebody on my board, okay? So something we all deal with. And I want to tell you, the way to get buy-in is to show them the numbers. Show them the numbers. Don't talk to them only about, I really need this, I really want this, I like this so much. You know, if you see our platform and you say, this communication strategy is incredible, it will save my time, you know, 20-fold, that's great. Talk about it, but show them the numbers. Show them, here is our annual donations that we get. Okay, here's our annual budget. Here's where we are in terms of current digital participation. Here's what the national trends say. It's the preferred method for 6, 7 out of 10. And ask your board members, besides church, where are you using checks and cash? Because the answer is pretty much nowhere. Church is one of the last remaining places people write checks. So you've got to show them the numbers. Too many church leaders and pastors, they go to their board and they just say, hey, I really want this, and the board says it's too expensive, and the church leader is not equipped with any of the numbers that they need, like I just covered, and you're done. You know, you're done, because it's all about, at the end of the day, it's all about getting donations and making it work. It has to return. I mean, nobody's got their head in the sand. Your board needs to know that they're not gonna lose money on it. It cannot be a losing enterprise. And if you do it right, it's almost impossible to lose money on a digital donation strategy, simply because I just showed you earlier, it takes to pay for the whole thing. Jose has got the same question, how to talk to the board. Listen, to talk to the board, you've got to show them numbers. Do your homework, and I've given you some of the numbers on here. You can schedule a call with me, and I'll give you more if you want to, but you've got to show your board the numbers, because the board says it's too expensive. And when I talk to boards, and I do all the time, every day, I say to the board, it's too expensive compared to what? What do you mean by that? What do you mean expensive? You know, well, it's $129 a month, which is not our cost, by the way. I'm just throwing it out there. Well, it's $129 a month, and PayPal's free. Okay, great, but you've had PayPal for 2 years, and you are not where you need to be. You're dying on the vine in the middle of summer. You have no recurring donations. Everybody's miserable in terms of finances. So you tell me, what do you really want? Do you want to stay where you are or go where you know you need to go? So you've got to show them the numbers, and the numbers I recommend is you show them the trends, which they're all gonna, if they're honest, they'll say, yeah, I know, everybody's using debit and credit cards. You say, okay, great. So we only have 2 out of 10 people. We're only at 20%. So we've got this gap of like people that should be using it, but they're not. So my question is, church boards, are we missing money? Like, is money MIA? And if you run through, and I'm going to go back here, if you go back to this right here, there you go. So I'm going to go back to some of these. You know, you calculate the lost checks and cash, then it's a no-brainer. So my broad advice, I've said it, so I'll stop saying it, is you've got to show the board the numbers and put it in front of them and say, here are the real numbers. This is how much it takes. This is how many donations we need to pay for our solution. This is the potential return that we should be expecting right now. Potential return is going to be that gap number. It's going to be recurring donations. All right, this is what we need. So you show your board the numbers and stick to your guns. Stick to the numbers, because the numbers don't lie, right? The numbers don't lie. Michael says, are you supportive of putting QR codes in queues? No, I do not recommend QR codes at all. Number one, because nobody uses them. It was a total fad. It's come and gone. I'm 31 years old, all right, so I'm in the quote-unquote young demographic everybody wants to reach. I've never used a QR code, not a single one in my life, nor would I ever. I think they're just kind of silly. People don't use QR codes. They came and went. Again, it's a small door. It's the same thing as an app. It's like saying we're gonna put up this tiny door, right? Because only 10% of your people have ever used a QR code. Versus how many people have checked out on Amazon, right? How many people have bought something on Amazon? How many people have bought something on Black Friday at, you know, Best Buy? How many people have signed up for sports for their kids and paid online at the YMCA? How many people have, and on we could go here and talk about people that have used their cards, paid a utility bill, paid their AT&T bill, paid their Verizon bill, paid their internet bill online using a card. That's when I say these small doors, you got to be so careful, because they represent such a small portion of users. QR codes, apps, all these things, text to give, they're small portions, and I mean small. And usually it's the young people, okay? Usually it's the 20 and 30 somethings that are using the small features. And it's not a knock on young people, because I am a young person relative to some, but they're the ones that don't have as much money to donate. And so churches will let the small demographic, the small door with the smallest amount of money, drive their entire digital strategy. It's a recipe to get to 20, 30% participation and almost no recurring donations. It's a recipe to do it. So that's my little rant on QR codes. Sorry. All right. Michael, I'm coming back to you here, man. According to demographers, I don't even know how to say that. Sorry. According to studies, people that are 50 years of age or less do not join organizations. How do you get them to join a digital giving program? It's tough. It's tough, and you're almost proving the point I just made, Michael, about young people using apps infrequently and all this kind of stuff. It's hard with young people. You're going to get basically one-time donations. They do struggle with recurring commitments, and that's just the way that it is. That's why you need to focus your donation strategy on the larger group. The larger group. If you have a church full of young people, which I've heard before, well, that's all we have is young people, then I think that my answer is you're going to get a lot of one-time donations, okay? But if you communicate about recurring and educate them, then they will do it. It's like I said earlier, the features are not your issues. You know, the features are not the problems. We have churches that we interact with all the time. The average church we interact with has all the features. That's what's interesting. The average church that we consult with and they want help on digital, they've got all the features. You know, there's a few churches that don't have a strategy, but most churches have, you know, a lot of features, but they haven't made progress. It's because they're relying on the features to do the communicating for them. It's not how it works. You've got to talk about it, and then you've got to have a solution in place that emphasizes recurring donations. Dave Potts gave a video presentation for boards. I do not. We have a 3 to 5 minute video that explains Rocket Donations and Spark for sure that you can check out. But we give you those numbers when you sign up for a one-to-one demo. You get all those numbers that you can take to your board. We send it to you in a summary. And we kind of do everything through our appointments because it's important that we communicate to you about 100% of the information. Let me see here. Dave says, I had a great question. Can I have a giveaway? I don't know, Dave. You had to answer the questions, man. How do you suggest communicating the need for recurring donations? Nina Graves. Nina, are you still on? If you're on, hey, maybe you can just give a shout out here so I know. I'm going to answer that question that Nina has, a great question. You know, to talk about recurring donations, and I said it a little bit earlier, You've got to talk about recurring donations. You've got to say why you need recurring donations specifically. People respond through specific communications. So it's like I said earlier, getting up and saying, hey, we've got an app that you can give now. Hey, you can give online now. Check it out. It's great. It's easy. It works so good. That's what most church leaders do, right? They announce that they have an ability to give online. And you can give online now if you want. That's not enough. That's not going to cut it. You've got to be specific. Hey, we know that a lot of you are using your cards on a daily basis for pretty much everything. So to make it easy for your normal habits, which we want to do because we love you, we have opened up Rocket Donations. You can give in less than a minute, and you can give on a recurring basis. And we mentioned our fall goals, because remember, it's about seasonal communication. In the fall, we have these 3 initiatives that you probably are well aware of. Let me just remind you of the 3 initiatives we have as a church, right? We have an after-school program we're starting. As you know, we're searching for a children's pastor. As you know, we need to renovate the youth wing. Those are 3 very real needs that are in our sights in the fall. If you can go on your Rocket Donation site and make a recurring commitment right now using your card, it will make a massive difference for us, because then we will be able to make plans that are wiser, that are better, and on and on. And you just communicate. You communicate with clarity, you communicate with honesty, and you communicate by the season, right? Church leaders ask for money only when they desperately need it, and that's usually in the middle of summer and Christmas Eve, right? When they don't have any money coming in, and it's Christmas Eve, they got to make up what they missed all year long. So that's why consistent communication, as I mentioned those patterns, and I'll go back to that slide, is so crucial. You have to communicate consistently. You have to communicate through different channels, right? Through different mediums, and you have to have the right emphasis. Let's see. Greg Payton says, I've sat through this. I'm the lead pastor. Great webinar. Thanks for sitting through the whole thing, Greg. Appreciate it. I need my financial people and tech guys to hear us. Am I showing it again? We will have a replay, yes. Or, Greg, you can schedule a private one-on-one demo, or anybody on your team can. And that site, whoops, I just went past it. I'll go back to it. You can see the site to go and do that. It's also on a lot of our emails. There'll be an email going out later today as well. And your team can book their demo if they want. I am looking for some other questions here. Let me see if I can find them, and then we're going to finish up. Jamie says, we were successful in getting the board to agree by piloting with a small group of people at a church, like a test group. That was powerful. Justin says, how do you feel your technology compares with PushPay? PushPay seems simpler and faster. Hey, that's a zinger. I love it. So our technology compares to PushPay really well. We're just as fast on website and mobile-based, but we are not as feature-focused. PushPay is a giant software company. They do a great job. They've come into the church space. They are owned by a much larger software company, but they are a software company. And I would say, Justin, I don't really emphasize too much our technology similarities and differences. What matters the most is communication. And I would just say, hey, what communication strategy has PushPay given you, or has your vendor given you, that has helped you? And the answer is they don't give you any strategy. They might give you a launch email, but I'm talking about after the honeymoon's over and after all the young people have used the app and they think it's so cool and all this good stuff. I'm talking about you're 24 months down the road and you've got 30–40% participation, and you really wish you had 20% recurring, but you don't. That's the result of communication, not of software. So PushPay and lots of other vendors are very, very feature focused. So that would be the biggest difference. We're not feature focused at all. We're focused on implementation. Just looking here, Joe says useful stuff. Thank you. Our service does not work in Canada. Jason asked that. He left. I'm sorry. It does not work in Canada. We are U.S. only right now, U.S. only. I had an email come in from a church. What is the minimum attendance required to make a digital giving solution like yours worth it? There's really not a minimum. I'd say at least 50, 75, maybe, give or take. I mean, we've got church plants that use it, and it's growing their church planting budget dramatically. So there's really not a right answer there. If it's 10 people, or if you're, a single ministry and you've got, 20 donors across the country, it's probably not a good fit. I'm going to go ahead and finish this up. You can see the appointment link on here. Go ahead and book that appointment if you can. That would be great. And we look forward to seeing you on the appointment. I'm seeing a few more questions here from Dave. Automatic billing checks. What about integration? Yeah, integration. We integrate with CCB. We have an F1 integration 4 weeks out. But here's the thing on integrations. I'll answer this. Will be my last question. Here's the thing on integration, everybody. The average church is changing their CRM every 24 to 36 months. I see Jay Calloway, Alexio. We do not do a direct integration with Alexio, but we want to cover all this in these appointments. Here's the thing, and this will be the last thing I'll say. Don't stress about integrations, okay? What we find with churches is when they go with a CRM house tool, all right, which is like F1's house tool, CCB's house tool, whatever, they usually peak out about 20-30% participation with low recurring donations. And the reason is pretty much because CRMs are designed for CRMs. They're designed to manage names, not take donations. And I know they can, but they're not optimized for it. Churches change CRMs every 24 to 36 months, some actually even more than that. So what matters the most is flexibility, and Rocket Donations is extremely flexible in that you can communicate with other platforms, QuickBooks, etc., other CRMs very, very easily using a couple functions. So it's not a big deal. Don't let that drive your strategy. Technology is so easy these days, so a dime a dozen. It's just not a big deal, very minimal effort. Hope that helps. Maybe just put a 1 or a yes if this was a helpful webinar to you, talking about real numbers. This was like math class, wasn't it? I'm sorry you had to endure a little math class, but here's the thing. When you go to your board, it's math class time, because that's what your board, that's what they want to know, are the numbers, okay? So that's why when you work with the Rocket Company, we talk about numbers, because we know that you all want to faithfully steward the tithes that you get, and we get it. And it's a heavy responsibility, and that's one of the reasons why we're so passionate. It's why I'm so fiery, is because I want you to be able to do it and do it right and do it in a way that truly impacts your church's financial future. And the answer to that is technology plus strategy and communication. I sure hope you'll book a demo. You will either talk with me or one of our other delightful representatives who will have more hair than I do, I promise you that. And they might be in a warmer place than I am, but we will get on there. We'll give you everything we've got to help you get on board with Rocket Donations, answer all your questions, all the nitty-gritty questions you have, integrations, etc. We'll answer every single thing. And don't forget the 2016 Fast Start Incentive, $800 of annual savings. If you won a giveaway on here, we will follow up with you via email. In fact, it would be really great if you won something to email me, sam@therocketcompany.com, sam@therocketcompany.com. If you won something, that would be great. Just reach out to us, because I think we've got all these email addresses, but just in case something happens, we don't have them or something, we want to make sure we can get you your prizes, your giveaways. All right. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this Q&A time, and the participation was awesome. We'll do another one of these soon, and hope you all will come back and participate again. Thanks a lot. Talk to you soon.